I've been playing Watch Dogs like mad over the past 12 hours. Progression-wise, I've completed roughly 20% of the story, but I've done a good amount of exploration, the side missions, and I've taken the time to mess with some other players. All in all, Watch Dogs is a highly entertaining experience, addictive even, so much so it's hard to stop playing the game to write these first impressions. This digital recreation of Chicago is teeming with life and personality. The combat is surprisingly challenging in a good way. The characters and the story from what we've seen are enjoyable, and we love hacking and being hacked by other players. So far. But considering its pedigree, Watch Dogs makes some rather large blunders, some of which can be patched, some of which are flaws in design. Gamers play as Aiden Pierce, a vigilante who is just as good with computers and smartphones as he is with firearms and his collapsible baton. Because of his digital shenanigans, Aiden has angered the wrong people, and now he's running from one end of the city to the other to protect his own identity, his family, and, while he's at it, stop or commit a petty crime or two. Aiden's hacking experience allows him to alter his surroundings on the fly. He can unlock security doors, start up elevators, unlock doors, patch into security cameras, and more. At the start of the game, Aiden's abilities are minimal, but by completing missions and side missions, players are granted experience points that can be dumped into skill trees of their choice. If things get hairy, Aiden can dip into his rather extensive arsenal of firearms and one-time use gadgets to eliminate his enemies. Thankfully, Aiden is not a bullet sponge, despite having a slow regenerating health system. Players will die very regularly in heavy fire circumstances. Stealth seems to be the better way to play Watch Dogs, and Aiden controls like a hybrid of Sam Fisher and any one of the assassins from the Assassin's Creed series. Aiden can snap from cover to cover and perform takedowns Splinter Cell style, but he can also execute some minor parkour. He can't scale the sides of buildings, but he's spry enough to be able to climb large walls or fences. So far, the combat and the ability to play stealthily are big pluses in our book. Initially, the side missions are on the easier side, but they ramp up in difficulty as the player progresses, resulting in a classic trial and error style gameplay to figure out which course of action is best for each scenario. The game also leans heavily on driving for transportation, chase, and escape scenarios. There is no gunplay from the driver's seat like you'd find in a Grand Theft Auto game. Instead, chases and escapes are regulated by interfering with traffic lights, street barriers, spike strips, and of course, good old-fashioned street racing. The chases and escapes are a high point for the game, or at least they should be if the driving controls weren't so terrible. And they are terrible. Using a mouse and keyboard for driving is quite difficult. Using a controller helps, but not by much. Most cars handle very, very poorly, have little or no weight to them, and corner dreadfully at all speeds. This is something that we hope Ubisoft patches in the near future, because it may be a deal breaker for many people. Even after hours of game time with Watch Dogs' driving, we still haven't gotten used to it. We've infiltrated a few players' games, and we've been infiltrated. The minigames feel like a minor distraction on the way to the end of the story. The experience is fun and thrilling as you hide in plain sight, hoping to not be discovered. Doing well in multiplayer will grant gamers unlocks to special bonus trees, but we need to spend more time with the multiplayer to say with any certainty one way or another if the multiplayer modes will add fun to the game, or if they feel like gamification of trolling. I've tested the game on PC where it ran steadily between 45 and 60 frames per second during most scenarios, even during times of heavy action. The game seemed to max out at 60 whether or not I was recording, or whether or not I had the game's settings on Ultra or on the lowest of the low. The settings on PC also don't seem to be very different when switching from low to ultra. Either way, the game looks pretty good for a massive open world game with so much happening on screen. I'm going to hold off on my final verdict of the game until I wrap up the story and put more time into the multiplayer. It's fun, but Watch Dogs is also huge, and it deserves a huge review.